Hello, my friends. Let's get going. How are you today? I feel like it's been a while since we have been together. Maybe it hasn't for you if you've been listening to each episode week after week. I did pre-record several episodes so that I could go on vacation. So I have not been with you each week in my own office space. So I kind of miss you. Super glad to be back and recording some new episodes. We left off with talking about feelings, and this episode, we're going to go more into that and talk about the feeling of urges, the feeling of being urgent, the feeling, what is an urge? This is a really frequent feeling that is like at the cause of lots of things that we don't like in our life. So it's a really useful one to understand and to pull apart and to be powerful with urges. So urges are just really normal, but let's take a look at it a little bit. So when I was thinking this morning about my most recent urges, I have got a teenager, and let me tell you, some of the things that have recently come out of that child's mouth, I have had the urge to just smack that child. Now, before you worry, I do not do that. That is not something that happens. That is a hard, full stop. So, which actually is an interesting thing because that can be a powerful urge. I mean, you've been a teenager, right? I don't know. Some of you might have teenagers. I mean, we kind of know what teenagers are like. It's part of what they do. They come out with some real doozies of things in this stage of life of trying to figure out who they are and how to separate from us. And man, they can be not very nice. And you just want to smack that mouth. But I don't really worry about that particular urge because it's a full stop for me. It's not something that I do in terms of, I do not put my hands on my children. Well, I do if I'm hugging them or something like that. But that is an urge that I don't worry about that I'm going to succumb to. But it's pretty darn powerful, let me tell you. Another one that came to mind, I mean, food, right? Food is a very urgy kind of thing. A lot of us have a lot of urge relationship with food. Me coming in, I'm recording this in the morning, and when I came home from my morning exercise class, I walk in the house and oh my gosh, the smell of toasting bagel. Whew, that produced a big urge feeling. I don't usually eat gluten. My husband can't eat gluten, so we don't have a lot of it around the house. But my kids eat bagels, and yeah, that I do love hot buttered bagel, crispy, crunching through into that soft middle, right? So that smell when I came in this morning just hit me, and whoo, big urge. Or like being on the couch at night, sitting there, relaxing in from the big day. Ice cream's a big one for me. I don't keep it in my house regularly. I don't stock it. My rule on ice cream is that I have to walk to the store. We have a store about a mile away. So I actually do buy pint-sized ice cream so that I don't keep a lot of ice cream in my house because it's a powerful urge for me. If I had ice cream, man, I would probably eat it every single night. And that just wouldn't serve my higher purpose of my life, to eat ice cream every single night. It would be delightful in the moment, but the long-term effects of that, not really what I want. On the other side, let's look at, there's also very urgent, like I frequently fly places and I'm a pretty casual flyer. And sometimes I get a little lost track of time, right? And I'll look at the clock. I'll have a big urge, holy cow, to get moving faster, right? I actually need to get my tail on the light rail and get over to the airport. Especially these days, the TSA lines are just crazy. So that's an instance where an urge, right? Really useful for me to see the clock and be, holy cow, feel urgent to get done, to get out the door. I think I've mentioned before, my other company is I have a swim school and I teach adults overcoming fear in water. I have an amazing team that does that work. And we lifeguard sometimes. And so I will feel the urge to jump in the pool sometimes, right? To see something happening that cues me in that there could be a problem. And so it's an urgent feel. Most of the time, I don't need to follow through with that. It's just I know the potential, right? I see the signals early. That's what makes a good lifeguard is you see early signals and intervene before you're doing some big full-on rescue. That is just something simple. So I'm very keyed in to when I lifeguard, when I'm on a pool deck or I'm around water, I oftentimes feel very urgent. So there's a couple examples for you, right, of this feeling, this urge feeling that is both positive and negative, right? That it's having the sensation or having the feeling of urge isn't all bad. We oftentimes, especially I know around eating or being upset with people, there's a lot of times that we can notice really those negative ones that have negative effects if we follow through with that feeling of urgent. This is a good moment to kind of remind you to go back and you can listen to episodes 9 and 10, which is about the model. And this is where I really break down the 5 ways that you can categorize everything that happens in the world, in life, and feelings. So we're talking about feelings. Urge is the third one. We have circumstance, thoughts, feelings. Feelings drive our actions, and our actions give us our results. So the feeling of urgent, if it drives the action of saving a life, okay, that was useful in that moment. Feeling the urge to eat cookies and popcorn and ice cream and chips and salsa for a long time on my couch after I've finished eating enough calories for the day. My body's had all the fuel it needs for the day. Not necessarily a helpful urge, right? That's not helpful to my higher self, my higher way of being. But if you haven't listened to those episodes 9 and 10 about the model, I suggest going back and listening to those. It's one of the most powerful coaching tools that you can learn that I teach you and apply to your life to really get in and get curious. And today on this one, since we have this idea of urge, because urges are something that happen very, very frequently. And so the better we get at feeling urges, the better we can get at creating a space between the feeling and our action. This is an idea that Viktor Frankl has given us, that we can create space between this feeling, the impulse, and our reaction. It's when these two things are very hooked together, that's when we end up eating the whole bowl of popcorn, right? That we're just laying into and not creating any space with my higher thinking self that says, hang on, yes, I have a feeling, but I don't need to just give way to the feeling. Having a feeling is pretty normal. Smelling, what is the smell that gets you? What's that food smell that gets you? Or what's that I've talked about with my spouse before he will sit down and just groan, and I will have an urge to make it mean all these things, and I'll just want to spew something at him, right? What is kind of a triggering thing that produces an urge in you to react? Now, let's take a moment here and look at what's the definition. What is our dictionary or our Google dictionary say about urges? So there's 2 different definitions in there, one being a noun and one being a verb. But so urge is a strong desire or impulse. Okay, it's a strong desire or impulse. And then from the action side of it, the verb side of it, it's an urge to try and earnestly or persistently to persuade someone to do something. So try earnestly or persistently. Doesn't that really to me keys into urges, earnestly and persistently nagging me to go get that ice cream, to do something. One of the things I want you to note here about both of these, a strong desire or persistently persuade to do something. The urges are potential. It's what comes before. So one of the things that we do, the way that we interrupt this process of feelings producing actions, is to actually experience them, is to be in the action, is to experience the urge in this case, because we're talking about the feeling of an urge. So go in your mind's eye now, if you would. You can do this along with me if you want to. And pick something. I gave you a bunch of ideas. Food is often a very simple idea. That's why I gave you that one. But you could pick something with your relationship where you feel a strong urge to be reactive, right? A strong urge to lash out or, do something that maybe you don't really want to be doing. And if you can play a strong movie in your head, really kind of let yourself go into it. This, like when I walked in the door and I smelled that bagel toasting, that warm bagel toasting, it produced an urge. And what does that feel like in your body? Have you paused to just really notice and feel, what does an urge feel like in your body? For me, it's kind of starts like a swelling in my belly. It's this mounting, building kind of feeling. A big place, going back to my swimming students, right, is we do a lot of work around breath. And if you take a big breath and you hold it, and as if you're underwater, at first, not a big deal. This feeling, you get an urgent, swelling, big tightness feeling over time as the air wants to be exchanged. You have your body mounts up because it has an urge to let go of the old air, to let go of the CO2. For me, that's how an urge feels in my body. Back to this, try earnestly and persistently to persuade. My brain will persistently try and persuade me to go get that dopamine hit of sugar, right? The sugar in the carbohydrates or the sugar in that ice cream. And it's this swelling, welling, mounting feeling that we have. And it's really this mounting feeling. There's two things that we can do with this. We can give way to it by, in the case of holding our breath, letting go of the air. In the case of a food urge, of putting that thing in our mouth. And now we're in the sensation, that dopamine pleasure sensation of that first bite. So we go from this swelling, mounting, pushing, expanding kind of feeling to giving way with a dopamine hit, whatever that is. Yelling, right? That release kind of sensation. Or the other thing that we can do with an urge is we can let it pass. We can stay with the feeling. Now, this is not one for the breathing exercise. At some point, we do have to breathe, although it does work even there. Our bodies tell us to breathe sooner than we actually need to breathe. This is just a normal way that the breath cycle works. I won't go too into this. This isn't the swim show, but it is how that works too. If you've ever held your breath for a while, and then it kind of mounts. And if you just hold on a little bit, it will decrease again. Kind of the urge will decrease again. It will come back again because obviously, eventually we do need to exchange our air. It's, you need it for survival. So that urge will come back again. But when I have, when I came in this morning and smelled that bagel, I can smell it, feel the urge mount, and give way to it and go, just, take a bite off my kid's plate. They're not going to miss one little bite of that bagel, right? Or I could pop my own bagel in and just give way to it. Or I can be in the feeling of urge. So let's dive in a little bit more to the feelings. There's two kinds of feelings. There's feelings as emotion. I have the emotion of an urge. But then there's also, as we kind of painted that picture, if you really think into something that creates a powerful urge for you, you'll notice that there is a body sensation. So that's the other kind of feel. We have a body sensation that goes along with emotions. Our body reacts. We have a physical reaction. And when you think about my example of running late, right, all that potential energy is really useful to move quickly. As a lifeguard, I want that potential energy so I can jump in and go get the person if I need to. Our spouses, there are times when they're doing their job that they need that urgent hit of potential energy to release, to send them out to do the thing. It's super useful. But when it's an urge going towards something that our higher thinking doesn't want to fulfill, I don't want to smack my kid. This is not going to help. This is not going to be good parenting. This is just going to help my kid fear me or fear their emotions. This doesn't give me the space to teach and to love and to have compassion with the hard work of teenagehood, right? Those are all the ways that I want to show up as a parent. I don't necessarily want to be permissive of whatever it is that they're doing that's triggering this I want to smack you kind of urge. But I do want to go into teaching mode and compassion mode and setting positive boundaries mode versus reactive mode, right? So I want to this is one that I know well because I do have a hard line. There are some things that we have hard lines on that we are very good at just feeling the urge, but not acting on it because it's a hard full stop no, right? It's a full stop no for me that I'm not going to smack my kid. It's just not an option. So I'm not worried about it because it's such a full stop no for me. I'm very good at feeling that urge in that moment and maybe walking away, right? Of pulling in some other strategies so I can have this mounting, swelling feeling, and it will mount. It'll crescendo. It can be super powerful and big, and then it breaks. It lets go. It gives way without me having to give way to the action that I'm trying to be persuaded into. So the best thing that we can do with a feeling like an urge is to get really good at feeling it. Feeling the sensation in your body. Really start to explore and see, gosh, how does my body physically react to the emotion of an urge? What happens? Where is that tightness? Where is, do my shoulders tense up? Do I clench my fists? Let yourself get really curious and actually exploring and being with the physical sensation of an urge. This is being in the potential, not being in the action. So unless you're going out and rescuing somebody, if it's not an action you want to be taking, simply let yourself feel that swelling. The better you get at it, the better you get at creating this space between your feelings and your actions. This is where we get to direct our lives instead of just being at the whim of our feelings. And we don't have to do it with judgment. Having urges is a normal part of being human. There's benefits to it. There's not benefits to it. Being good at feeling urges on purpose is the key to opening up that space. And that's the space that we want. So when we're talking about, I haven't given you a lot of relationship. I've given you teenage relationship. Maybe that's because my my spouse is on shift. So I have my urgy examples are not with my spouse at the moment because they're at work and doing their thing and I'm doing the single parenting thing. So maybe that's why those examples are quicker to mind for me today. But whatever ways of being or ways of showing up in your relationship that are not serving your relationship, right? That you have the urge to be reactive, the urge to be critical, the urge to be judgmental of yourself or your partner. Right? These are not ways that usually serve your relationship of building love and connection that we really truly desire in our relationships. Love and connection and understanding and compassion and togetherness. And these are the ways that we're wanting to build and to practice. We don't want to judge ourselves on having an urge. Let yourself feel it. Feel how it mounts and wells and swells up. And then it breaks. It crashes over. It moves through you. You move to another thing. It's when we're in the resistance of it or in the repeated practice of giving way to it that the urges just kind of control us and push us into actions that lead us to results in our lives that we don't desire in our lives. All right. So go out and feel some urges. Let it feel terrible. If it feels terrible to you, that's okay. Let it feel terrible. You are able to handle that. You are able to handle a sensation in your body. Really stay in what is the sensation in your body? You're not being damaged by it. You're not being hurt by it. There's nothing actually going wrong here. It's just a powerful swelling. Where do you feel it in your body? All right, if you want any help with this, because this is a tricky one, and this is one that repeats over and over, and it's one that I will bring to coaching frequently because it's so normal in our lives to have urges and that we habituate to giving into them. So this is a really powerful, important one to get help with and to get some perspective with. And treat yourself with so much kindness and love. Okay, my friends, be committed. Be committed to yourself. Be committed. Be present. That's that feeling part. Feel in the present moment. Right now, I feel a tightness in my chest. Nothing's gone wrong. It's just a feeling in your body. Show up to that feeling with curiosity and love. It's okay. It's okay that you have urges. Show up with love for yourself and for your beautiful and amazing spouse. All right. I love you guys, and I will talk to you next week. Thanks so much for listening. Make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you can get every episode. And when you are ready to be in action, come find us. Facebook, Instagram, or our website. It's all the same name, relationshipsonfire.com. We've got that S on there. There's lots of us having relationships. So relationships with an S on fire.com. Thanks so much. Saying goodbye, your fire and water gal, Cori Myka. See you next time.